Well, about 24 hours ago, we saw the IDF carrying out strikes in real time on Hezbollah targets. Lebanon's government has banned Hezbollah from carrying out any military activity. It's marking a major shift in Lebanon's power structure. This coming after Hezbollah fired on Israel, saying that it was avenging the killing of Iran's supreme leader. Hezbollah, which was a once dominant force, is now facing a government that's willing, at least on paper, to challenge its armed status in a country still shaped by the memory of its 15-year civil war. Let's bring in Foundation for Defense of Democracy's David Daoud. He researches Lebanon and Hezbollah for the FDD. You know, I'm going to keep an eye on these live pictures because you never know what's going to happen at this time of day. But David, I think the big question to start here is, does the Lebanese state actually have the capacity, politically or militarily, to force Hezbollah to disarm?
Thank you for having me on, and I think that's an excellent question to start. Capacity has never really been the issue. We see that the Lebanese armed forces is very effective when it wants to act. We hear from a lot of the trainers that the United States sends over to work with the Lebanese armed forces is that they're usually a cut above any other Arab army that we've worked with when they're willing to act. The issue has always been willingness. And I think here, look, we had a very good statement from the Lebanese cabinet yesterday prescribing all of Hezbollah's military and security activities. It didn't go far enough, if you ask me, for two reasons. The first is that this isn't signed into a law. It didn't prescribe Hezbollah in its entirety as a terrorist organization. I think that would have been befitting, given Hezbollah just dragged Lebanon into another war over the stated wishes of the Lebanese government in contravention of Lebanese law. The second part is that the government tasked the army with proceeding to disarm Hezbollah north of the Litani River, except they haven't finished disarming them south of the Litani River. We know this because the Israelis continue to strike Hezbollah personnel south of the Litani River that are involved in the group's local regeneration efforts. We know this because the attacks that came on Israel came from south of the Litani River. And Hezbollah is continuing to attack. Today, they've fired several attacks at Israel. So good on paper, but the will appears to be still lacking when it comes to enforcement.
If Hezbollah refuses to comply, are they still strong enough to put up a fight?
Well, I think the issue is this barrier of fear that the Lebanese state has. Like you mentioned earlier, the memory of Lebanon's civil war still weighs very heavily on the country. I mean, we can't really think of it even as Americans. Our civil war, there's no one in living memory who experienced it, who remembers it. Lebanese civil war, the scars are literally on people's bodies. So I don't necessarily fault them for wanting to avoid that. At the same time, leaving Hezbollah intact, it's not leaving Lebanon stable. It's not helping Lebanon avoid conflict. Instead, it's a choice of going to a potential civil war, to a potential conflict with Hezbollah, or letting Hezbollah continue to destroy Lebanon through 1,000 paper cuts. And the fear is that Hezbollah retains enough social support to be able to mobilize Lebanese Shiites if the Lebanese government pursues Hezbollah's disarmament. Except I think right now Lebanese Shiites aren't going to be very happy with this organization.
You know, David, how much of this decision is driven by internal Lebanese pressure versus international pressure from the U.S., Europe, or other regional actors?
I think Lebanon, left to its own devices, would never have undertaken this decision. The calculus has unfortunately always been that it is easier and better, right, for Lebanon to endure some kind of flare-up with Israel once every 10, once every 20 years. That would last for a month or two, rather than go to a civil war, which would last, wouldn't occur once every 10 years. It would last for maybe 10 or 15 years. It would engulf the entire country, wouldn't be localized. So I think that's unfortunately been the Lebanese calculus. So it has taken tremendous pressure. It's taken this major mistake by Hezbollah to drag the country into war, a foreign war, a war that had nothing to do with Lebanon, twice in as many years. And I think the Lebanese are starting to realize that Israel's no longer playing games. This issue with Hezbollah is not going to, their calculus was wrong. It's Hezbollah is inviting wars upon them now in quicker and quicker increments. And the international community has lost its patience with Lebanon. It's not just in terms of pressure, it's also in terms of assistance. Lebanon is economically collapsed in 2019. They need money desperately. And what Lebanon's international partners, from the United States to the French to the Gulf states, have told them is either shape up, engage in deep and genuine economic and political reforms, now disarm Hezbollah, or we're sorry, but the spigots of funding will remain cut off.
If Hezbollah is disarmed, what kind of reverberations will that have on other Iranian proxies? There's a number of them in Iraq, Syria, and Yemen. Could this impact them?
I mean, of course, I think it would put wind in the sails of any government willing to move against, that has been hesitant to move against Iran's proxies, given that Hezbollah was traditionally the most powerful of these proxies. More importantly, though, Iran itself, if this regime survives this conflict, will have lost the tip of the spear, the vanguard of its regional expansionism. I mean, Hezbollah is not just Iran's branch in Lebanon. It's not just Iran's branch to fight Israel. When we entered Iraq in 2003, Hezbollah entered in on our coattails. They helped raise the Shiite militias that killed hundreds, if not thousands, of U.S. forces. Hezbollah has been the tip of the spear of this regional expansionist project to push back American influence out of the region, to not, again, hindering our allies. It's not just about going after our allies, the Israelis, the Gulf states. It's about ultimately ejecting us from a region that is important to global trade, that is important in terms of its natural resources, and through doing so, to shrink our international influence and ultimately to affect our way of life here at home. Hezbollah, again, has been the tip of Iran's spear in this project of ejecting the United States from the Middle East. The loss of Hezbollah would severely hamper that project, assuming the regime survives this conflict with the United States and Israel.
So these are the types of images that we were looking at last night as the IDF was actively targeting Hezbollah in Beirut's suburbs. This is a live look of the very same area. Early morning hours in Beirut. As I see it, just past 4 in the morning there. Let's ask a bigger scale question here. Is it possible, David, that is this feeling like the beginning of the end for Iran's model of projecting power through armed proxies?
I think it really depends on how determined the United States and Israel are to finish the job. We're hearing a lot of strong rhetoric when it comes from Israel regarding Lebanon, that this is it. The Hezbollah's disarmament is the goal. The orders for the evacuation of Lebanese villages is much more expansive than it was in the last conflict. The IDF has already reportedly moved to expand the buffer zone in South Lebanon. I mean, just the strikes yesterday, they've been nonstop. There is a concerted effort to make sure that Hezbollah is pushed past the point of regeneration and recovery. And I think the Israelis are not just targeting Hezbollah's military assets, they're targeting what I like to call their day after assets, the assets that would allow Hezbollah to pick up the pieces if this war, if the dust settles on this war and Hezbollah is still intact in some way, or the Lebanese government remains unwilling to move against Hezbollah. Namely, right, we saw strikes on Al-Manar, Hezbollah's TV station. Now, they have backup studios and so on, but we saw strikes on Qamar al-Hassan. This is Hezbollah's small loans financial institution. What the Israelis seem to be trying to do is, again, not just break the element that Hezbollah can, its military arm that it can use to resist disarmament, but to also break the apparatuses it has used to maintain its hold over the Shiites, the Lebanese Shiites. This is the source of Hezbollah's longevity in Lebanon and durability. But if Hezbollah can't take care of them the day after the war, if they can't help them piece their lives back together after shattering their lives again through a conflict, if they don't have the money, if they can't frame the narrative through propaganda institutions like Al-Manar and Al-Mayadeen, then they'll lose hold over these Shiites. And that anger that should be there among Lebanese Shiites that may just be bubbling beneath the surface could break forward, and Hezbollah could lose its legitimacy within Lebanon, and that will make it much easier to disarm. And it seems like the Israelis are going for that angle, not just the military angle, pulling the day after rug out from under Hezbollah's feet.
David Daoud is with the FDD. Thanks, David.
Thank you so much.